Since the moment our species appeared on this earth, much has changed. We have abandoned the hunter-gatherer lifestyle and became sedentary. We have conquered Earth, its resources, and its elements. However, there's one point that connects all of us Homo sapiens. Something that fascinates me, you, and all of our ancestors who have ever set foot on this earth. The night sky. Who did not stand outside during a warm summer night to look at the stars, wondering what might hide behind these bright lights, getting dizzy while trying to imagine the incredible distances that separate us? We can be sure that this fascination for the night sky is deeply rooted in ourselves. Although we know a bit more about space than our ancestors, we are still far away from understanding it, and with it our role in the universe. You could say that our window into space is only a bit larger than the one of our hunter-gatherer ancestors. Sadly, we don't know what most of our ancestors thought about the night sky. For hundreds of thousands of years, knowledge was paused orally. Of these people, only skeletons remain. Together with them, their mysteries and stories were buried too, left behind in the past. But around 5,000 years ago, a small fraction of humanity decided that it would be beneficial to write down what they thought of the world. Thanks to these, we can reconstruct what some of them thought about the universe. Of these, the Sumerians are definitely the most interesting ones. Although I run at risk that you will think the following story originates from a fever dream. For the Sumerians, space was not exactly a mystery. They knew what was lurking out there. According to them, there's a planet called Nibiru, home of the Anunnaki. The civilization of the Anunnaki heavily relied on gold, but their planet did not have large reserves of the metal. Therefore, they and their slave race flew to Earth in order to mine its gold resources. But the slave race revolted and was destroyed by the Anunnaki. Because they needed new slaves, they created mankind by mixing their DNA with the one of our ancestors. So, for the Sumerians, space was home of their gods, their creators, their protectors, but also their worst nightmares. All of this was written down in the Eridogenesis. Now you know why I warned you before telling the story. It would be one you could find in a modern science fiction novel. But did the Sumerians really encounter alien gods, or did they just made it up in order to legitimize their rule? Well, who am I to tell you what you should believe? In contrast to the Middle East, the ancient Indo-Europeans that inhabited Europe did not use a scripture. Therefore, it is much harder to recreate their culture. For a long time, it was believed that we should not even expect any complex cultural beliefs for that period in Europe, as they would supposedly require a form of written language. That while the Middle East was creating the first complex societies, Europe was still trapped in the Stone Age. However, this was wrong. No artifact disproves it like the one that I will show you now. Meet the Nebra Sky Disk. In 1999, hobby archaeologists were on the search for artifacts in the town of Nebra, Germany. Suddenly, their metal detector responded and quickly, they unearthed a plate and 2 swords. They tried to sell it on the black market, but to our luck, the police was able to secure it and it ended in the Landesmuseum Halle. Here, the mystery of the Nebra Sky Disk began. The disk is around 4,000 years old and can therefore be dated in the early Bronze Age. Its creators were most likely from the Anunnaki culture, known for its minimalistic pottery. It shows 1 moon, 1 sun, and around 24 stars. It is unique because of multiple reasons. On one side, it is the oldest realistic depiction of the night sky, even older as the ones found in the Middle East, who were only decorative. On the other, we know no similar objects from the Bronze Age graves of that time. People were buried with tools, weapons, or valuables, but not with discs like the one found at Nebra. And the disc was buried itself, without a human. But the way it was buried with objects does remind of an Anunnaki burial. Let's try to unravel its mystery. In order to understand the disc, we have to understand the people that made it. The Anunnaki culture was a mixture of the Indo-European Balbika and corded ware culture, who migrated from the steppe into Europe around 5,000 years ago. They were also very religious people, as places like Stonehenge show. Not far from the sky disk, there even was a wooden Stonehenge in the sanctuary of Pömmelte, which you can see in the background. In central Germany, bell beaker and corded ware culture mixed into the Aunjetitzer culture, who dominated the region from 2300 to 1600 BC. The lords of the Aunjetitzer were mighty. In fact, their power was unmatched in Germany till the foundation of the Germanic kingdoms at the end of the Roman Empire. They constructed large graveyards that dominated the region, and some findings suggest that they even had a standing military. They had far-reaching connections. For example, the gold and tin used for the sky disk came from Cornwall. Around 2000 BC, one of the lords of Aunjetitz decided to make the Nebra Sky Disk. But what made him do that, and what did he try to tell us with the mysterious disk? Truth be told, we will never know what it really wanted to say. The only thing we can do is try to interpret it. Interpretations reach from rational to mystical. First of all, the Nebra Sky Disk experienced multiple stages. During the first phase, the sky disk had a sun, moon, and 32 stars. Although most of the stars have a regular distance between them, 7 are put in a group. It is likely that they represent the Pleiades. During a later stage, 2 arcs were put on the disk. They correctly indicate the distance between the sunset at summer and the winter solstice when being held on the Mittelberg in Germany. During the third stage, a solar boat was put on the disk. Note that there could have been generations between each phase. But what does it mean? Most likely it indicates a leap year rule. When you see that the Pleiades are too close to the moon, you have to put an extra month on the calendar. Usually you have to do this every 3 years when you use a moon year with 354 days. This information is, for example, essential for agricultural societies. But why is this so interesting? Well, how did a scripturalist society came up with this rule? Historians think that you would at least need 3 generations of observations to come up with that. It is even more difficult when you don't have the possibility to write your observations down. The archaeologist Harald Meller believes that once a young lord of the Aunjetitzer culture traveled to Mesopotamia, where he learned from the leap year rule. On his way, he would have met the people of the Mediterranean world. Maybe he gave him Baltic amber in exchange, which can be found in graves all over the Bronze Age world. Meller further adds that another journey of an Aunjetitzer lord explains the third phase of the disk. A sun boat was added. We know that in Egyptian mythology, the sun was transported by a boat. Did maybe a young lord visit the Egyptians where he encountered this myth? It would not be impossible. Also in Egypt we find Baltic amber. But this does not have to be the case. Maybe they came up with that rule without scripture. Or maybe they had one and only wrote on perishable materials like wood or animal skins. Still, the Nebra Sky Disk tells us that in either way, Central Europe of the Bronze Age was far more complex than we imagined. The story of the Nebra Sky Disk ended in the year 1600 BC. Roughly at the same time, the Aunjetitzer culture also disappeared from history. Most likely, a disease or a drought was responsible for the end of their culture. It is believed that the disk was sacrificed to the gods in order to appease them. Therefore, she was also accompanied by swords, just like the lords of Aunjetitz. But their calls were not answered. Soon, the Aunjetitz culture would follow the disk in its grave. For thousands of years, the disk would wait to be found, to tell us of the great power and knowledge of its lords. Who knows how many treasures like the Nebra Sky Disk still lie in the grounds of Europe. I hope you enjoyed this video. Bye.